Welcome to Full On Insanity with Nicola Matt. Today I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down and chatting with international best-selling author Taylor Dawn. Taylor, thank you again so much for joining me today.
Hello, it's Taylor Dawn.
Hey Taylor, how's it going today?
It is fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing good. Had a rough day as usual, but it was great to finally get home.
I bet. I kind of felt the same way today. I was out running errands, and I'm like, I just want to be at home in my bed.
I've been that way for the past couple of weeks. There's mornings I'm like, I don't want to have to get up and go and do anything. I don't want to have to adult today. Can I just stay home?
I know. If it wasn't for coffee, I think I would have been dead already.
Yeah, I joke at the office. I tell everybody, just hook me up an IV of coffee.
I know.
Keep me going.
Yep. Here at home, if anybody's home when I get up, I'm usually like, don't talk to me until I've had a pot of coffee.
Exactly. I used to drink coffee all the time, but I got to where, I don't know if I was developing an intolerance to it, but I got to where every time I drank it, it was giving me a migraine, and I eventually had to stop drinking it completely, which was not good at all.
That is terrible. That's my worst nightmare kind of thing right now. That's crazy.
I had to have my coffee, but I did. I got to the point where I don't know if it was, and of course I tried different brands and different creamers, and I don't know. But my husband said that it started doing him the same way, and I guess maybe during the summer we stopped drinking it as much because it's hot down here. And when it got cold and I started trying to drink it, it was giving me a migraine. And I was like, okay, I guess I can deal better without having the coffee than I can having a migraine all day. So
exactly, yeah.
I had to give it up, and I was not happy.
Well, I will say a prayer for you.
So if you want to, we'll go ahead and get started.
All right. I am ready. I'm just sitting here folding my laundry.
All right. What genres do you write in?
I'm kind of like what I call a Heinz 57 author, and that's basically I throw a little bit of everything into my books. I started out primarily in romance. At the time when I started writing, I called it erotic romance because I honestly didn't know what the boundaries of just contemporary versus erotic romance was. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there writing this book that has sex scenes in it, and I'm like, oh, well, then it's erotic romance, which was not true. So I would say mostly contemporary romance. I do some romance suspense. I have an urban fantasy book, and this year we're going to start adding some different genres too. Those are surprised though.
Awesome. Well, I guess then that's what I'd have to call myself, because I'm actually started out writing erotica, and I tell people, I joke people, they say they write erotica. I'm like, I don't write erotica, I write porn. Let's call it what it is. If that was a legit category on Amazon, that's what I would pick, but
I know.
That's what I tell everybody, I write porn.
Well, and the bad thing is, though, is when you tell people that, they have this preconceived notion that if your book's 300 pages long, it's nothing but sex. Exactly. And so, you have to step back and tell them hey, there is a story in here. It's, not just porn without a plot.
Right, exactly. And that, to me, that is the primary difference between erotic romance and just plain erotica. And I joke that I write porn, but there's nothing that I've written that does not have some type of plot line. Would have to change things up if I took all the sex out, but there's still a plot there. It's not the only thing driving it. But everything I write does have sex in it, but there's a lot more going on. So I'm to the point where I really don't like tagging it as erotica, just because there's such a huge number of books being put in that category. I know some people get ticked off if you don't tag it as erotica and there's actually sex in it, but I don't feel, I feel like the Amazon and all the different book outlets need to start realizing that just because it has sex in it doesn't make it, solely erotica. There is other stuff going on.
Exactly. And I sit and I wonder, like you said, there's this huge influx of authors that have gotten on the 50 Shades of Grey bandwagon. And the problem is they probably are of the same mindset I was years ago of, oh, it has sex in it. It's immediately erotica. So I'm wondering, like, how many, like, what percentage of those authors, they're like, all right, I'm just going to stick it in erotica, and their poor book just gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're crying in a corner because they're like, I don't understand. Why am I not selling books? And I'm like, your book got buried. I mean, There's just millions.
Yes, the category is just huge, and I wish they made like an actual, subcategories within it that you could actually search. I know when you're putting your books in there, you can actually, there's a little bit of a sub genre in erotica, but it doesn't break it out nearly like it needs to.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why, and I'll tell you, a lot of people put them in there because they think, oh, well, 50 Shades is erotica. It's like 50 Shades. So they think it's going to sell, but it's like you said, there's so many millions that everything's getting lost and buried. And I wish Amazon would go back and just redo the entire category system.
Oh, I'm with you on that. I mean, it's so confusing, and it's, when we put our books in there as indie authors, it's kind of, you don't have very many to choose from. Mm-hmm. And so you sit and you stare at the screen, you're like, well, okay, I'll put it in this one and see how good it does. Well, the trick I've found is you kind of have to category surf. Like at the end of every week, if you're an indie author, you need to go in and you need to go through every single category. Can my book fit in this subcategory? Would it do better there? And you kind of you need to stick those books in different categories when you're first starting out to see what works. Mm-hmm. Because the problem is that Amazon does not give visibility to those books that are not in the top 100 of their genre or their category. Mm-hmm. So once you hit 101, it's like your book is a rock and has fallen down to the bottom of the deepest hole in the ocean.
Exactly.
But if you hit 100 or lower, Amazon throws up a light and they're like, hey, people, check this book out. They're going to send it an email blast. They're going to put it on the home page. Oh, if you like this, then you'll probably like this. Mm-hmm. So I know so many authors are like, well, it's just contemporary romance, so I'm just going to put it in there. Okay, good luck, because, mine's just contemporary romance too, but there's also about 5 other categories it can fit in. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to try them and see which one works the best.
Exactly, and I spend a lot of time playing what I call category roulette, just changing them up. And what I've noticed is there's really no rhyme or reason. I can put it in, one category and it'll do really well for a while, and then it, just disappears off the map. And I go back but I mean, it's not something that you can really put it in there and just leave it and think, well, that's it, I'm never going to change it again. You really do have to go in there and change with the categories, because if it fits in 6 or 7 and one of those categories is selling really well this week, stick it in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, the thing is, you could be, in the top 50 in your category for a month running, and you're so excited. People are seeing your book, and you're getting that visibility. But then all of a sudden, at the end of that month, you just fall off the map, and you're like, what happened? Well, Amazon changes their algorithms literally daily, if not hourly sometimes, because they get kind of weird. But, I mean, seriously, I feel like there's somebody sitting back and they're like, watch this, and let's mess with all these people.
Yes, but they have a monkey in the back corner over there pushing the buttons just randomly.
They do. They're like, okay, Bobo the monkey, push that button and see see if everybody freaks out. And we usually do. We're like, oh, my God. Yeah. So the thing is that they don't understand is, they may have been in the top 50 for that month, and that's great. But at the beginning of the next month, how many books are getting published in that same exact category? Mm-hmm. Because what happens is those brand new books, they get pushed to the front of the line because Amazon wants to give their customers something new and fresh every day. And so we have these authors that are just like, well, I wrote a book and I quit because it's not selling. Well, you have to do your research. You have to do your work. That's just the way this business is. And that's what it is. It is a business.
Exactly. And I think that's probably the one thing that aggravates me the most about the indie author community is people, they wrote a book and they published it on Amazon. Oh, well, now I'm a professional. And I'm always saying if you want to be considered a professional, then you have to provide a professional quality product. Just because you learned how to upload a file does not make you a professional.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of ties in with what I was thinking earlier today. I'm actually I do pre-edits on my own books before I send them off to an editor. And I had a Facebook status written out saying, something along the lines of, I know you guys have heard this a million times before, but go over your work before an editor actually sees it. Because there might be a huge plot hole that you can fix. There might be something you're like, what the hell was I thinking when I wrote that? Was I drunk or high? I don't know, and you can fix it. But that's the thing. I think that you're right, that people, they're just like, I wrote a book and I'm just going to upload it. And it makes the rest of us that actually spend money and do the work and put that time and effort in on it, it makes us feel like less because you have people get online and they're like, oh, the indie world is crap. I downloaded a crappy book from Amazon or Smashwords, and there was no editing or whatever. Well, to me, for every one of those kind of books that you're going to get, you're probably going to find 50 amazing books that have the quality work in them. And I'm not saying mine are the best. I'm not the best author out there. I'm not as good as some, but I am better than some others. But the only person I'm in competition with is myself every day. Right. So, and I keep that mindset because our world is full of drama. And there's people going at each other's throats every single day. And I just step back and I'm like, I'm not getting involved in it. I'm just going to write my books because they make me happy.
Exactly. I get enough of drama going on with my own characters with not being able to control them.
Yeah, exactly.
Another drama going on. I'm just going to go back into my little world over here.
Amen to that.
Yeah, definitely. How did you become a writer? What actually started you on your journey? On your journey to put pen to paper, so to speak?
Well, I kind of started writing back in grade school and high school. It was mostly poetry, and I won a poetry contest my senior year of high school, like a statewide poetry contest kind of thing. And I'd always wanted to write, but every time I put pen to paper, nothing would come out. And so I had always wanted to just write. I wanted one book. I just want to write one book. That was actually on my bucket list. And over the years, I've crossed off several things on my bucket list. So when I wrote that first book, and I'm just going to throw a disclaimer out here right now to all the new authors, that first book, I did not have the money to have it edited. I was in that group of authors that put out the worst possible book you could because I didn't know. I didn't know that I had to have it edited. I didn't know that I needed a proofreader and a professional cover because I wasn't in that world to understand it. So I put out this, I'll be the first to say, it was the most horrible book ever. I have the proof copies, the paperback proofs of it, and every now and then, every few years, I'll pull them off the dusty shelf and I'll flip it open because it's really cool to see how you can grow over the years from where you were. And you sit back and you giggle because you're like, oh, my God, I wrote that? what was wrong with me? Was there something? Yeah, it's crazy. But, yeah, it mainly started as a bucket list item, and I'm getting ready to release book number 10 in March.
Awesome. Yeah,
kind of crazy.
And I pull stuff off that actually, went through an actual publisher, and I'm sitting here reading it going, what the hell was I thinking when I wrote that? Why did my editor let that go? What the hell? So,
I know.
Yeah, it is amazing at how much you grow. Just, from between one book, 3 books, 4 books. So, yeah, I love doing it. But, yeah, some of it's very, very cringeworthy. But I occasionally have those epiphanies where I'm like, wow, that was pretty damn good for that to have been written 10 years ago.
Yeah, there are those parts that, like, surprise you, and you're like, well, that wasn't too bad. But then you do, if you flip it open and you compare to what you're writing currently, you're like, wow, like, it's night and day. And for a human being to recognize that they've had some sort of growth like that, whether it be creatively, intellectually, I think it's, like, really cool. It's like you're waking up out of a coma and you're like, holy balls, like, look at me. We're not the most, well-known authors at this point. Hopefully one day we will be. But, to me, as long as you're growing and you're improving your craft every single day that you wake up, that is the way to get where you want to be.
Exactly. And I think that's another thing that, I try to stress to the new authors is your first book's going to be shit. I don't care who you are. It's going to be shit. Your second book is probably going to be shit. Your third book probably isn't going to be much better. Okay? I think I'm on book 9, 10, 11, somewhere I've done forgot, and it's only marginally better than book 1. But you have to keep working. It's not something. It's like being a professional at anything. Every professional that started out was an amateur, and they sucked. You did not get great overnight. And I think a lot of authors get discouraged because, they write a book and they put it up there and they're published and they're like, oh, well, great, I wrote this book, and I don't understand why people are saying all these things about it, and I'm like, how long have you been writing? Well, this is the first thing I've written. No one's good the first time. Nothing you write the first time is going to be good. It just isn't. Yeah. It's like anything else. You have to hone your craft and get better at it.
I mean, if you can crank out a damn perfect book, the very first time, and that sucker land, New York Times, USA Today bestseller, then I'm just going to straight up say you must be like Jesus or something, because I thought I worked really hard on that first book. That first series was horrific that I wrote. And I can still, to this day, remember in one of the reviews, somebody had said, and I have to giggle about it because it's absolutely hilarious now, a reviewer had said something along the lines of, I don't think this author has ever had sex, judging by the sex scenes in this book. And I laugh so hard now because that's one thing that my readers and new people, they compliment me the most on. They're like, your sex scenes are amazing. They're like, you've got that down pat. And I'm like, oh, cool. So as long as we can take those, what we feel are negative comments, they're not really negative. We just feel it because that's our baby we're putting out there.
Right.
If you can take those and turn them into a positive, I think that's the best way to grow. I'm not one of these that if I get a bad review, I throw it up on Facebook and I'm like, well, this person's an asshole. I don't do that.
Right.
The very first bad review I got, I cried. You can ask my husband. I cried. And I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. And he's like, really? You're just going to give up that easily? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, no, you're not. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm not.
Yeah.
So.
I haven't had too many bad reviews. There was one that I got for the last release that came out that they said, well, it was a good book. It was fast-paced. I really liked it, but I almost scrapped it because they used too much profanity. And I'm sitting here going, okay, it's rock stars and it's erotica. I wasn't aware that there was too much profanity, but apparently my characters cuss too much for them, which I thought was funny. I'm like, okay, out of all of the sex scenes that was going on, all the crazy things that these people were doing, the F-bomb is where you drew the line. Okay, great.
That is so crazy.
To see what they think about this next one.
I know. Well, and see, the biggest change for me was doing, I wrote Saving London, which is it's a very clean urban fantasy. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy. But I put the book out, and there weren't like horrible reviews or anything on it, but there were a few that, I just didn't care for it. I figured out the plot, before the end, and I'm like, okay, you know, I just like, well, I wrote it, so it's out there. I'm not going to cry in the soup about it.
Yeah. And that's one thing about reviews is you can't please everybody. And
No.
I think this is where, you know, you have some authors that will take it to heart, and you will have, you know, for every one person that loves it, you're going to have just as many or more that absolutely hated it. You cannot please everybody all the time. And there's some authors that they either don't listen when the reviewers are saying you really need to edit this, and then you have those that they want to take every single little bad thing that's said to heart and just, you know, want to give up and cry and everything. And I'm like, you have to learn where to draw the line. You know, if someone was run starring my stuff because they didn't like it because there was too much sex or not enough sex or cursing or whatever, you know, at least it's not them saying that the editing was bad. You know, the editing I can fix. The plot holes I can fix. But if your only thing is there's either too much sex or not enough sex or you just didn't like the storyline, you know, I'm good with that. I'm sure there's going to be some readers that love it. But authors really have to learn which one to take to heart and which ones to kind of toss with a grain of salt. Most of the time, the bad reviews that I get, I usually laugh over them.
Yeah. I'm at that point, though. I mean, it's okay, you know, for a newer author to be upset about it. I mean, go friggin' cry. I don't care. You know, go drink a bottle of whatever and get over it. But, you know, you get to that point, and you're probably there too, is you grow this thick skin. Mm-hmm. And it's not that you don't care what other people think. You really do, or else you wouldn't have put this out into the world and expected people to judge it, basically. Yeah, exactly. But it's that you don't sit there and take every single tiny thing into heart, because if you do, it's going to tear you down, and it's eventually going to just destroy you.
Yeah, exactly. You will get to the point where you're, you know, want to give up. I don't want to do this anymore.
Mhm. I'm not going to let it destroy me, which I know everybody's probably like, oh my God, she has a lot of shitty reviews. I'm like, no, that's not it. That's not it at all.
You have to kind of roll with the punches. So are you completely independently published, or have you tried getting a traditional publishing, or did you decide against it?
I am indie published under my own label right now. We are working on opening up actually a small publishing company. We kind of got put on hold because tomorrow I'm having knee surgery. So the business plans and everything are on hold for now. But I actually was contacted by a publisher, I don't know, about a month and a half ago, I thought they wanted the first book in my Magnolia series. But when I talked to them further, they want the entire series, which is a little scary. Mm-hmm. So I've been thinking over that. The series isn't even done yet. There's actually one more book after this one comes out in March. There'll be another one to end the series. So they wanted it when it was totally complete, not just like one single book after the other.
Right.
Yeah. But, you know, I like having the control right now. You know, I was with a hybrid publisher before, and it just wasn't for me. Yeah. I felt like there was just too much restraint and so many restrictions, and I'm like, I hate this. And I pushed back. Like, I'm you know, one of those people in this world, I'm like, give it to the man, you know. So I just was not digging it. And when they went out of business, I was kind of excited.
Yes, and I was with that same hybrid publisher, and I set out when I decided, you know, I mean, I had been indie for the better part of 10 years, never even thought about trying to get a trade publishing deal. And I set out to try to prove a point to everybody saying, oh, well, you know, you get a publisher, and everyone has this idea that you get a publisher and you send off this turd of a manuscript and they shine it all up and send you back a diamond, and you never have to do another thing. You're getting advancements, and you're not having to market, promote. You're not having to do anything. You just sit and write. And that's not how even trade publishing actually works anymore, not even when you're signed with Random House. I can name you several authors on my friends list on Facebook that have book deals with Random House, and they're out there marketing and promoting, just like the indies are, because Random House isn't doing a damn thing for them other than giving them, their name until they prove themselves. So I set out looking for a trade publisher to just to prove a point that it's not what everybody thinks, and unfortunately I landed with this hybrid publisher. I started getting alarm bells when I was reading over the contract. But I decided I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway, so I did it, and just as soon as I signed that contract and got logged into their site and started seeing how things actually worked, I immediately regretted it. I mean, the day I sent in those contracts, I was in tears debating on whether or not I wanted to contact the guy that was over all of it and tell him I changed my mind, rip up my contract. I'm not doing this. But I was determined to prove the point. So, unfortunately, I wrote it out.
There were several that did, they did contact after, they sent in those contracts. They're like, no, I can't. My thing is, I would say good and bad experiences. One thing that I pulled that was a good experience from it was the whole editing thing. Like I said before, like I didn't know that I needed to have a book edited. Like, who knew? But, my editor, the very first one I had there, like she was a hard ass. I cried so many times because she ripped me apart. And I was so mad at her. Like I hated her with every fiber of my being. But now that I look back on it, like she really helped me. Like she whipped me into shape like a freaking drill sergeant. And I'm at the point now, several years later, where, authors are sending me their manuscripts to edit because I'm that good at it. I'm that good at catching what needs to be done. So, and like I said, I pre-edit my stuff before I send it off. But like I said, good and bad. The bad was everything had to be a certain way. We still had to bust our ass no matter what.
Right.
Like you said, you think when you get with any sort of publisher, you're like sitting on easy street, and you're not.
No.
Sometimes you have to work harder.
Exactly, and you're not getting near about the royalties. So I actually, when I was reading the email that they sent out, letting everyone know that they were closing their doors, I jumped up from my desk screaming. I was so excited. And my husband's like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I'm like, they're like, they're closing. My publisher is closing. Next month, I finally get my print rights back. And after that, I said, unless Random House wants to court me and, let me have publishing under their name, that's it. I'm pretty much done with publishing. I just cannot see going down that road again, knowing how miserable I was after I signed that contract.
Well, and speaking of that, it makes you so gun shy because even this publisher that's contacted me, I haven't told anybody their name. I kind of refuse to do that until I make a decision down the road. But when they contacted me, one of their editors had found one of my books on Goodreads and decided to read it and absolutely freaking loved it. But even so, it's a huge compliment to get an offer like that. And I think a novice author that had never been with a publisher would have been like, hell yeah, I'm doing it, with no thought process whatsoever, because that's their dream. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to sit around, the table with their family and be like, guess what I did? I signed a contract today for my books. And it is a huge honor. But me, I'm sitting here going, I don't know. I've been down that road once before. I don't know if I want to go down it again.
Exactly. I used to would sit and watch people on Facebook. Oh, well, I got this contract deal, and I got that contract deal, and I'd kind of feel this twinge of jealousy. And then, I ended up with my publisher, and after all that, now I see it, and I'm sitting there shaking my head going, I hope you know what you got yourself into.
Yeah.
Now it's like no jealousy whatsoever. I kind of feel sorry for him at this point. So I'm like, in about 3 months, you're going to be beating your head against the desk going, what the hell have I done to myself?
Yeah, and the thing, if a new author, you know, had gotten a contract offer and they came to me saying, like, you know, what should I do? I would just really read through that stuff, like really sit down and think about it.
Definitely.
Because the thing is, if a publisher is offering you some kind of contract, obviously they want you. So they're going to wait a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think a good publisher would want you to sit there and read over their stuff. If you have a lawyer friend or if you can afford to pay a lawyer, take and print that sucker out, take the contract to them, and let them look it over. Because there's so much legal jargon in those damn book contracts that my head spins.
Yes. And, you know, a lot of them, you know, they have them separated out. Well, this is what's going to go with ebooks, and this is how it's going to be with paperbacks, and, you know, this is distributing them. And, you know, this is what happens if by some miracle you get a movie deal. So, yeah, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I was like you. My head was just absolutely spinning. And the one that, you know, I had with the publisher, to me, seemed pretty straightforward until they went under, and I really got out there and got to looking at all the little clauses and everything. I'm like, this was, you know, pretty much designed to screw me over in the event that this happened.
Yeah.
And here I am.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of authors, they look at, you know, the whole self-publishing thing. They're like, well, it's just really expensive to do it on your own. It's cheaper just to have a publisher because they pay for all that stuff. Well, honestly, if you look around, there are some really good editors that are not that expensive, and most of them are willing to work with you on payment plans. Exactly. The same goes for cover designers. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are new cover designers out there that I've seen on Facebook and different groups and stuff that they're, you know, just a couple months in on learning how to design covers, but they've done some amazing work.
Yes, you know, I have seen some indie covers that are above and beyond what I'm seeing being produced by trade publishers.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The covers that I had on my Chances Are series with this publisher, they were shit compared to what's on them now. And they draw more of an eye now, even at live signing events. People are like, oh, my gosh, look at those books. And I'm like, yeah, aren't they beautiful? Take them.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes, exactly.
So I'm like, you know, you want to.
Yeah, and I mean, and I actually am a huge fan of Laurel K. Hamilton, but the last book that she had that came out late last year, I saw, you know, the cover on her Facebook feed, and I'm sitting there going, you know, I've seen indie books that just blew this thing out of the water. To me, it wasn't very eye-catching. It was very plain. You know, for it to have come, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if she's actually published through Random House. If she's not, she should be. But I'm sitting there going, you know, she's a New York Times bestseller, and I know she doesn't have any control over her covers, you know, more than likely. But I'm just sitting there going, I would expect something so much better for a New York Times bestselling author. And it just, it amazes me that, to me, you can almost tell which ones are indie published just by the, and it's not necessarily because it's crappy covers, but because they are really awesome covers.
Yeah.
I mean, I see an awesome cover and I'm like, oh, that is independently published, because you don't see that type of cover sitting on something that was trade published.
No, and it seems like the indie covers are more artistic instead of just plain like straightforward. You know, and that's the thing too, I think a lot of authors mess up on though when it comes to their covers, is because each author, we have our personal style, whether, you know, even in clothing or the way we decorate our house. So you almost have to put that into your book cover, because your readers are going to recognize as like, oh, that's definitely a Tailored On book, you know, like that's her. You know, there's been so many conversations about, you know, in our genres that, you know, everybody's just slapping a half-naked dude on the cover. Mm-hmm. And in a way, that's true, because it's all you see. Like, oh, yeah, it's going to sell because it's got, like, a, you know, six-pack and, like, the V going down in the pants and, you know, he's got his hand down his crotch, whatever. And I'm like, that's just not me. Yeah. Like, I can't do that. That's why when I did worked with my designer for the Magnolia series, we went with the faces of the guys because it was something different. And when people see those books, they're like, whoa, those really grab you. And I'm like, hell yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're different. And, you know, half-naked dudes, that's just not me. That's not my reality for sure.
Yeah. And, I mean, it really depends on how the covers are done. And I've noticed some recently that I've seen that, you know, you have the half-naked headless dude on there, you know, doing the little pose. And then they would have it like, you know, something else screened in there. And the two photos that they had together they did not go together. You could tell that those were two completely different photos that had been screened in together. And it just seemed off. And, I mean, and I've done, I actually do have, I think, 2 of my books that have, you know, the headless, you know, six-pack torso on them with other things going on. But I'm like you, that's not something that I particularly care to do. I did it for 2 of them just because I was redoing covers, and I still like them, but I much prefer doing something a little bit more artistic. And I know I've heard people say, you know, I like my porn, but I want my kink on the inside of the pages, not out on the cover.
Yeah, I've heard that too. And it's not that I'm trying to, like, cater to that. Basically, when I have a cover design, I want to love it, you know, and I want it to pull me in. So if it does that for me, I'm like, you know, you got the title, you know who it's by, open the damn pages and read it.
Yes.
Then you can have your heat.
Exactly. And what I've started, you know, thinking to myself when I'm doing a book cover is, if I saw this book sitting on a bookshelf, would I want to pick it up? And if so, what is making me want to pick it up? Is it the title of the book? Is it bright? Is it colorful? You know, why would I want to go and pick this up? And the reason why I ask myself this now is because I've seen people take snapshots of their Kindle, you know, all the different book covers sitting on their Kindle, and ask on Facebook, well, what do I want to read next? You know, and I look and I'm like, all of them look exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's like virtually the same cover over and over again, and I'm like, I want mine, if it's mixed in there, I want it to immediately grab you, slap you upside the head, and go, ooh, I'm reading that one, because it stands out. And it's
definitely.
the same way on Amazon. You know, if you're scrolling through all of your different books, whatever genre you're in, you want it to reach out and slap you and say, ooh, what's that one about?
Yeah. I mean, to me, even if it's not like a mystery book, like, it still needs to have some sort of mystery to it. Because, like you said, let's put the heat on the pages instead of the cover. And I've never been that person that has bought a book solely on the cover. I read the blurb. You know, I'm like, oh, it interests me or it doesn't. And so that's another thing that authors don't, it just seems like some just don't take the time to really work on that blurb. You put together this amazing book, but then you slap a shit blurb on it and expect people to be drawn in, and there's not.
And I must admit, for me, the hardest thing about being a writer, aside from just finding the time to write, is writing the damn blurb.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And having to write a synopsis, please just shoot me. I'd rather write a blurb than I had a synopsis. That is like the most cruel thing a publisher could ever make you do, is write a synopsis of those things.
I am like 1,000% with you on that, because I sat here and wrote a 600-page book, but it took me 3 freaking weeks to write the blurb for the back of the book, and I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Every time I would try, I would just slam my laptop shut, and I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah, how are you supposed to condense a 600-page epic novel into a paragraph or 2?
Yeah, I'm like, I can't. Nope. It is. But the crazy thing was with this book, like, I woke up yesterday morning, I think it was, and I, like, shuffled to the coffee pot, and all of a sudden, like, when I woke up fully, I was like, holy shit, I know the blurb. And I ran to my laptop, I wrote it, you know, and I passed it off to a couple people, you know, just readers, you know, a blogger, just to get, like, their opinion. They passed it back with what they thought. We did a few tweaks on it, and it was good to go. So you cannot drop the ball on any single part of a book. It is all part of an equation that you have to put together perfectly. Am I saying mine are perfect? No, they're not by any means. Someday I hope that I'll think that they are, but so far I'm doing pretty good, and I'm like, all right, we got the equation right for now until it changes.
Yeah. Well, that's what I tell people. You know, my books aren't perfect, but it's not from lack of me working my ass off trying to make them that way.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that's where I kind of get aggravated with other people that it is an equation. Of course, I was bitching on Facebook the other day about formatting. A lot of people don't think about formatting because when you upload to Kindle, it kind of strips all of that out. But if you have not learned to do, you know, the proper line breaks and paragraph breaks, you get, you know, like word soup. It's just, it looks like a maze that you can sit there and draw in a pencil. And it absolutely drives me insane. And, of course, with me, it's that OCD, and there's probably a lot of readers that probably don't care. But I'm the type of person that I don't care if you did get it edited within an inch of its life. If I open that thing up and it's not formatted like it's supposed to be, my OCD will not let me look past that. I cannot read the book. All I can think about is I want to go in and fix it. And I will end up not buying it just because I cannot stand to see that.
I am the same way. Like, before I send mine off to the editor, like, once I do my very last pass, I will actually convert my Word doc into an EPUB and send it to my Nook. And even when you do that, before it's formatted, because it's not formatted yet, it still, like, distorts everything. And even just reading, like, my own book like that, like, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't. No. It's ugly.
Yes, it is. And like I said, I guess it's my OCD, and I'm someone who's probably used to seeing them that way may not know that there's a right way and a wrong way to actually have it. But I can't stand it. I was looking at a couple of them that, I mean, the writing was awesome. You could tell that they had a really good editor, but it had not been through a proper formatter, and it was just a train wreck of formatting. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I just can't.
Yeah, you just have to take in all the parts of the whole when it comes to publishing a book. And personally, if you're not willing to put in the time either to learn how to format your book or to pay somebody a little bit of money to do it, like, why are you doing it? Like, it just, I don't know. I've come to that point where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, there's just so many of us out there. I mean, we're this huge community, and I wish more people would step up. You know, if you see a book and it's by an indie author and you can contact them, you're like, hey, you know, I noticed your formatting was off. Do you need help? Do you need me to show you how to do this? Because, unfortunately, everybody's out there like, every man for themselves. And, you know, I wasn't raised like that. I was raised to help people, and I constantly do. I mean, I love helping people if I have the time to do it. It's fun and challenging in a way for me.
Yes, absolutely. And I try to help people out. What I've discovered that it's what I call, and unfortunately a lot of authors are like this, what I call an asshole. They ask you how to do it, and then when you tell them, they're like, they don't like the answers that you give them because they think this is going to be something simple or easy. And when they find out that it's a lot of hard work, well, I'm just going to ignore that part and do what I want to do anyway, and then they wonder why the book flops or why they're getting bad reviews. Well, I told you it needed to be formatted. I told you it needed a professional editor. You didn't want to do it. You know, well, I don't have the money. Well, you spent all this time and energy and effort doing it. Why would you not want it to have the absolute best chance that you can get? Yeah. And then if it doesn't sell, well, it's not because you didn't write a good book or it didn't get properly edited or it didn't have a good cover or it didn't get formatted right. You know, it may just be something that's just, you know, you haven't found your niche yet. So it boggles my mind that people want to ask you how to do stuff and then they want to ignore your advice. And it's, you know, to the point where I see all the time on Facebook people asking, well, how do you do this and how do you do that? And the one thing that aggravates the stew out of me is people want to argue with the veterans of the industry. You know, and I'm
Yeah.
like, you've been here doing this 6 months. I've been doing this for 30 plus years. What the hell? You know? And it's usually I'm like going, okay, well, you know, if I haven't figured out any damn thing in 30 plus years, you go right ahead since you apparently know more than I have, and you've, you know, been doing it for 3 months. So,
from the beginning, I've been like a sponge. Anytime I've asked anybody anything, like I write that shit down, and you know, I go back to it, or you know, learn how to do stuff myself. That kind of thing. I'm not like, oh, well, thanks for the info, but I'm just gonna do it my way in the end anyway. No.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try your way. You know, at least try your way. If it doesn't work, yeah, I might do my own thing.
Yeah, and it's still, you know, even after 30 years of doing this, it's an ongoing process because the industry is so dynamic. And anytime I see something that someone has posted on Facebook that I think, hey, that's a damn good idea, I'm like you, I'm writing it down. I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
I'm asking questions because, you know, just because I've been doing it this long doesn't mean that I can't learn something new, especially when the industry changes like it does so frequently.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot even begin to tell you how many, like, screenshots I've taken with my phone that are in my photo album of I'll be scrolling through Facebook and see, you know, somebody asking a question. I'm like, that's a good question. And I'll go and screenshot the question and the answers. If there's somebody like, oh, hey, you know, I'm doing blah, blah, blah on my blog. If you're interested, send me an email. I'll screenshot that too. Because you just never know when you're going to need that stuff.
Exactly.
And I think, you know, it's just like being a baby. You know, when you first start out as being a writer, you're like a baby. You go through the infant stage, the toddler stage, you know, and you just keep growing. And you have to be like a human being, and you have to absorb that shit. I mean, you learn from what you see out there. If it works for you, great. If not, you'll find your way. It just may take a little bit longer.
Yes, exactly. And I've noticed that I'll have people that they'll ask questions. You know, it's the same thing that I've been wondering. And, you know, I can tell them, well, this has been my experience. And unfortunately, I'm one of those authors that I've literally tossed everything at the wall and nothing has stuck over the years. If there's a secret formula out there, unfortunately, I have not discovered it yet. And, you know, because people's like, oh, well, do blog tours and do your mailing list, you know, and all these different things. I'm like, done that, check. Yep, tried that, check. Tried that, no, that shit didn't work either, check. So, I mean, it really is, there is no right or wrong answer to it.
Yeah.
What works for one person is not going to work for the other. And it's like anybody that asks me, I tell them, I'm like, okay, you know that business plan that you wrote, be prepared to change it come the next book, because every new book that comes out, you have to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate how you're going to market it, because it changes that quickly.
Yeah, you do. You cannot stay in the same rut. And like you said, what's going to work for me, it may not work for you. And I can give you advice on it and be like, oh, and I think you and I have talked, you know, in the past. And I'm like, well, try this, try that. And, you know, you come back and you're like, I've tried it, it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. And there's nothing wrong with that, because we're all individuals, we're all different. You know, you're going to have those authors that do put out their first book and they hit it big. Congratulations to them. I'm okay with working hard to bust my ass to get where I am. I might be like 90 by the time I see, like, you know, New York Times bestseller on one of my books, but hey, I did it.
Yes.
You know,
exactly.
you just...
My mother-in-law tells me that's what's going to happen. Oh, you're going to hit it big. I'm like, yes, but once I'm dead, who gives a shit? You know, yeah, my kids will be rich if they're bright enough to give up my copyright. But other than that, yeah, once I'm dead, I don't care. But, yeah, and that's what I tell my mother-in-law. Yeah, I am going to hit it big. There's going to be massive amounts of movies made after my books once I'm dead and gone. Maybe my grandkids will have an easy ride.
Maybe you'll come back as a ghost and then you can see it.
Yes, reincarnate myself and be the leading
There you go.
But, yeah, definitely. It's there is no magical bullet, and I had it's someone that I consider a friend, Pete Epic, who is the guitarist for Break My Band. Him and I struck up a rapport on Facebook, couple of years ago after his first book came out, and he asked me, how do you get your book out to the masses? How are you marketing? What do I need to do to get this book out there to more and more people? I'm like, you just asked the $3 million question. Honey, if I knew that, I would be writing full time. Nobody knows. I'm sorry. I can't answer your question because it's literally different for every single author on the planet. Just because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Yeah, and the thing is too, is, a lot of authors, they expect to put that book out there and immediately have that following that's going to buy that book. I go with the mindset of, like, I've slowly built my following over the past, several years, and it's still continuing to grow by leaps and bounds. But the one thing you have to remember is that every single reader counts. It doesn't matter if you put out a book and only one person buys that book. You have a new reader. And I think we take that for granted. We expect, our bread and butter readers to grab up our books as soon as they're released. But me, I'm like, yeah, I can rely on those people to buy those books. But I want to reach those people that were maybe thinking about buying the last book, but I'm going to bring them on board this time.
Yeah.
So you have to be considerate, and you have to remember they're a human being just like you. They are making a choice. You need to just show them why they need to make that choice. You need to draw them in with your powers of awesomeness.
Yes, exactly. And I'm not one of those authors. Even if I was writing full-time, I'm not sure that I could churn out a book every month. And I've noticed that, you do have those authors that they have, a decent readership, but the only way that they're keeping those readers hooked is to literally churn out a book every 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm sitting there going, you do that, and you have 500 people that go and snap it up, but there are millions of readers out there. Why are you not working harder on your marketing to reach some of those other readers?
Yeah.
And, and unfortunately, I get caught in that own trap that I'm always writing the next novel, and I don't feel that I've ever actually given any of my books the chance that it needs to really gain traction and to market it the way that it needs to be before I'm off on my next big adventure, writing that next book. And I think a lot of authors fall into that same thing, that they're, and I see, authors tell other authors all the time, you've got to write another book, just keep writing another one, another one, another one, another one. Well, it takes just one book to hit the New York Times bestseller. If you have 50, that's great. But having 50 books that aren't selling isn't as good as having one that is.
Exactly.
So what's the point of constantly churning them out if no one's reading any of them?
Yeah.
And like I said, unfortunately, I fall into that trap. I know it, intellectually that I need to be marketing, but authors really need to pay attention to the marketing and the promotion side of things, and not just think that, that you just have to keep cranking them out, because it doesn't matter if you have 50 or 100 books sitting out there if nobody knows about them. How is anybody supposed to read them if nobody knows that they're out there?
And I have a lot of people tell me that I write books fast. I feel like every 3 to 4 months to me is not fast, because I do take my time with them. I don't force things, but I don't think I could be that person that was just cranking out books every month, because I don't feel like that they would be at the quality I would want them to be.
Yeah.
Because, even if it was, a pretty good first draft, it's still a first draft. I don't roll like that. I want, when that book comes out, I want it to be just amazing. And you have to take the time to do that. And I just don't understand it. I'm like, wow, these people, I write full time from home. I'm lucky that I get to do that. I don't have to work outside the house. But still, I wouldn't have time. The dishes would be piled up. Nobody would have clean underwear in the house. The poor dogs would be neglected. I don't even think I could do it.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. And I have a lot of people tell me, I don't see how you produce as many books as you do working outside the home. But, and I'm the same. I'm like, well, I'm doing good if I get one out every 3 to 4 months. And to me, I'm like you, that doesn't seem like it's very fast. But there are some authors that that's all they do is write, and they're only producing 1, maybe 2 books a year. So, you know, in 2000, between November of 2015 and November of 2016, I think I had 4 books to be released, which is, you know, for me in itself is phenomenal because I'm not a very fast writer. And if it hadn't been for my co-author, then, you know, 2 of those books never would have been released. But, you know, I'm the type of person that I've got to feel it. I've got to take my time. And, you know, if it takes me 6 months to a year to write it, then it just does. So I'm the same way. I could not possibly, even if I was able to write full-time, I feel like I probably would burn out after about the 3rd or 4th book before I would just, you know, crash and be like, I can't do this anymore.
Well, and see, when you do it full-time like I do, you do get to that point. I hit that point last October. I had my last live event in Toledo, Ohio. When I came home from that event, like I was just done. The event was freaking amazing. I had an amazing time. We met so many people. But the year had caught up with me by that point, and my brain and my body was just like, we can't do anymore. Even knowing that I needed to work on several projects that I had going, like I told my husband, I said, I have got to take time off. I said, I need rest. I need to just sit in front of the freaking TV for a couple days, binge watching something, because you get to that point. I don't know if it's burnout. I know it wasn't writer's block because the story's always there, but you know, it just, you have to put the brakes on, because with me, and I don't know if you experience this or not, sometimes when you're in a book like that and then you stop writing, you're almost like stuck between that line of reality and fiction. And you're just like, your head is in this crazy headspace and you're like, what's going on? And it's nuts. It makes you feel like you're going absolutely crazy.
Yes. I have kind of experienced something like that before. And after this last book came out in November, right before Thanksgiving, I think is when it came out. And like I said, this was 4 books in under a year. And I was just completely and utterly burnt out. And I told my co-author, you know, we still had, you know, lots of projects, you know, that we were talking about and things that we want to do. And I'm like, you don't understand. I've got to take a break because I feel like my brain is oozing out of my ears because I'm literally, if I'm not working at my regular job, I'm in front of the computer, either writing, editing, doing graphic work, formatting, doing the podcast. And I'm like, I cannot keep going at this kind of, you know, at this speed. I'm absolutely losing my mind.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I used to beat myself up if I wasn't writing. And now if I want to take a week off, and I always have to do this after I have a release, there's like usually about 2 to 3 weeks that I don't want to do anything. I don't want to look at my computer. I come home from work, and I go and I sit in front of the TV, and I just, you know, kind of cut everything off and just kind of veg out because I'm so burnt out because it's just been work for, you know, the weeks and the months leading up to getting that book released. And now I'm like, I know I've got 6 manuscripts that I'm currently working on right now, plus all the ones that me and my co-author are working on. I'm like, I'm on overload. I cannot keep doing this.
It's crazy. It's crazy, but I love it. That's insane.
I know, and I'm the same way. And I really do. I love having all of these projects. A lot of authors are like, well, I'm scared that I'm going to run out of ideas. And my thing is I'm always scared I'm going to die before I have a chance to write all the books that I have floating around in my head.
Oh, my gosh, that is exactly how I am. I'm not even kidding. Straight on. That's me.
Yeah. You know, and I'm like, people at the office think that I am so crazy because my flash drive that everything is stored on, it's on a lanyard. And that flash drive goes everywhere that I go. When I leave the house in the morning, it's stuck down in my bra.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's kind of, you know, the lanyard kind of sticks out of my clothes, and everybody's like, what is that? You know, and here I go pulling my flash drive out of my bra and go, it's my flash drive. Like, what the hell are you carrying around a flash drive? I'm like, you don't understand. It's got manuscripts. It's got outlines. It's got all of my graphic artwork. It's everything. It's literally, the other half of me. And if something were to happen to it, then, and that's why I carry it with me, because I'm terrified that my house is going to burn down while I'm at work. And I would lose everything.
I know.
So, and I mean, like, I've made my husband turn around and go back home before because I forgot my flash drive. There was one day I forgot it, and I was actually at work when I realized that my flash drive was still at home. And I was absolutely beside myself, almost having a panic attack because I did not have my flash drive with me.
Oh, no. It's like your security blanket.
Yes, it is, because, oh, my gosh, if something were to happen, I mean, you see horror stories on Facebook all the time of people's computer dying and it had all their files on it and they can't retrieve them, or,
Oh, yeah, been there, done that last year.
Yes, and about every 3 or 4 months, I've got flash drives sitting all around my house, but about every 3 or 4 months, I will go and buy a new flash drive and back stuff up, just because I'm just that paranoid. Everyone thinks it's so funny, but I'm like, no, I do not want to be one of those authors that's going to end up losing their manuscripts because my computer crapped out on me, which I actually had something like that happen to me on the 3rd book when I was writing The Red Fang. We had a power surge, and it zapped my flash drive, and I lost about 40-something pages of my manuscript.
Oh, my gosh.
So, and ever since then, I've just kind of been paranoid, so I will go and back up my flash drives ever so often. I've started backing everything up in Google Docs here recently because you just don't ever know. I mean, that's your lifeblood.
Last year, I had, like, the worst possible thing happen because, first of all, I am so clumsy. My laptop slid off of, I have, like, a little lap desk that I use. And I set my recliner, and I have it there. Well, I sat it down on the floor, and I tripped. And the laptop slid off, and it was closed, but it's a touchscreen laptop. And I stepped on it. And it shattered, like, the LCD touchscreen, and I couldn't, like, even see anything to save stuff. But I was so lucky because I had these really awesome computer nerds, and I took it to them, and I went and bought a 1 terabyte external hard drive, and they were able to pull the entire hard drive. I got all of my shit back. And I could have kissed that man because I was so worried.
Yes, and I guess this is why everybody has OCD and, backs up to flash drives and hard drives and Google and the cloud and everywhere else because you just don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my crap's floating around in the cloud, too. I'm like, all right, we're just going to send it everywhere and hope for the best.
Yes, exactly. So one of my favorite authors, well, I have several. I grew up reading Anne Rice, Stephen King, Laurel K. Hamilton, Charlene Harris, Robin Cook, V.C. Andrews, all the, what I call the greats from those generations. Those have been the ones that have influenced me the most. Who has been the most influential in your writing style? Was there one particular author that you gravitated to, or you just kind of did your own thing, a modge podge of different writing styles?
Well, the person that I read the most when I was younger was John Grisham, which is crazy because that has, like, nothing to do with what I write now. Honestly, when I first started writing, I really wasn't trying to, be like anybody else. I was just like, let's just write it and see what happens. And if my work can be compared to anybody, which I don't like to do, I would say probably, like, J.C. Burton, because she's, like, awesome and fabulous, too. Maybe, like, Maya Banks. I don't know. People like that, I guess. Because, like I said, I haven't really been, like, influenced. I don't like to be under the influence.
Yeah, I've had people tell me, especially when they read the paranormal series that I have out, and they're like, well, this sounds like every Anne Rice, every Laurel K. Hamilton every Charlene Harris book, every, Bram Stoker book that I've ever read, this sounds like a Mod Podge of it. And I'm like, well, that's probably because everyone that you just mentioned, I've probably read every single thing that they've ever written. So, but I'm like you, I don't like for people to kind of compare my work. And I know the one thing that I cannot stand to see is people talking about, oh, well, if you like 50 Shades, then you'll like this.
Yeah.
If you like Twilight, you'll like this. If you like Anne Rice, you're going to like this. And I'm just sitting there going, I don't want something like Anne Rice. I want Anne Rice.
Yeah.
If I want something like Twilight, I'll go read Stephanie Meyer's. If I want something that's like Harry Potter, I'm going to go for the original. I don't want the knockoff. So
exactly.
I don't like for, and it's one thing that I don't do with my own books is try to compare them to someone else. That's something that I very, shied away from. One of my friends at work says that I write 50 Shades of Twilight. I'm like, if you want to get technical, yes, it is 50 Shades of Twilight. But I'm not going to say, if you like, 50 Shades or if you like Twilight, go read my book. Even if they do sound a lot like them, that's purely coincidence on my part because I've never actually read the 50 Shades trilogy. So if they're read like that, sorry, accident.
Yeah, I just, you see people doing ads and such or, their teasers that they put out and they're like, well, if you love so-and-so, you'll love this book. And I'm like, I don't want to piggyback off of anyone else's success.
Right.
If I'm going to have that success, like, I want to earn it myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't want somebody to say, well, she only got that because she was comparing herself to so-and-so. Like, it's not right to me. Like, for me personally, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. Go do it if you want to friggin' do it. I don't care. But for me, I'm not going to do it.
Yes. And I'm also one of those that, to me, it seems that the words best-selling author has kind of become a catchphrase. It's like a marketing ploy to the point where I'm seeing it on, virtually every single book cover that I see has some type of quote-unquote bestseller on it. And I'm sitting there going, when I hit the New York Times, I'll consider myself a bestseller. And I've had people tell me, well, I've hit, number 4 and number 5 in paranormal romance and in paranormal action adventure many times. But I don't see claiming a bestseller title for myself. I mean, if other people want to do it, then that's fine. But for me, I've seen my sales. I know how many sales it took to get to number 4 and number 5. And to me, it's just like, that's not best-selling to me, especially not on a list that changes every single hour. Now, if I'd sold 40 or 50,000 copies to hit number 4 or number 5, I'm going to claim it. But considering that I know that I made it there with only a few hundred sales, when there are other authors that have sold so many more copies than me that aren't considered bestsellers, I guess it's more of a moral dilemma. And I know a lot of people use it just strictly as a marketing ploy. For them, it's just business as usual. It's not something they really think about as being a moral dilemma. But for myself, it's something that I have chosen not to put on my books for now. I may decide to do that later. And like I said, if other people want to do it, that's great. But to me, it seems to have lost all meaning because it's being used so much.
Well, and I think the thing is that it's being used when it shouldn't be. I'm going to straight out tell you, you probably know, my books do say International Bestselling Author on them, and there's a reason for that. Because in November of 2015, we hit 3 bestseller lists. We hit UK, Canada, and Australia. We were in the top 40 overall Kindle store, and that was the paid Kindle store. We also hit number 1 in every single one of our categories that we had it in those countries. So I was not going to claim unless I hit paid overall.
Yes.
I had already made up my mind. If I did not hit that, then there was no way I was going to claim that because I didn't feel like I earned it.
Right.
And, once things were said and done, we went back and we look at those sales numbers, and there was a reason that those numbers were hit. I mean, books were sold.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a handful of books. So I felt like, yeah, I earned that. And I know that there's differing opinions on it. Unfortunately, I feel like some of the people are, I'm gonna just say it. They're jealous. And the thing is, there's just, the waters are muddy there, and I get why they're pissed off, because there are these authors out there like, well, if so-and-so can put bestseller on their book, then I can too, and it's going to sell more books. And that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
You can't come straight out of the gate and hit number 99 in just a category and be like, I'm a bestseller.
Yeah.
You didn't earn it.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why, I haven't, because I was like you. Now, if I ever hit, an overall paid, because that is freaking hard as hell to do. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
The last, one of the times when it was right after the Red Fang came out, I put it on sale for 99 cents, and within 24 hours, I sold over 700 copies. And that's how I hit number 4 and number 5 in paranormal romance and action adventure. But the overall was still, I never cracked the top 100,000, even with that many copies. And 700 copies sold in a single day is pretty damn good, for an indie author. But
yeah, definitely.
I still wasn't ranking. So after seeing that and it never cracking the top 100,000, if you can crack even the top 1,000 in Amazon overall, then shit, yeah, I know you're moving some serious copies. So claim it. But
it was crazy, and to open up Amazon and to see that you are kicking Dean Koontz's ass.
Oh, hell yeah.
On the paid overall, like, I'm going to tell you what, when I didn't even know what happened. My friend from Oregon called me, and I was getting ready to go to bed. She's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just, like, laying here in bed watching The Walking Dead. I don't even like The Walking Dead, but I'm watching it. And she's like, get your ass online. And she starts sending me screenshots. I started screaming. My husband thought somebody died. And I literally burst out into those, like, Looney Tunes, like, cartoon tears, and just, like, I fell to the floor because it was a pivotal moment for me. And, to see some of those titles that you bypassed, it was surreal. It was like, I freaking did it. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And you get to that point and you're like, I want more,
Yeah.
And it'll happen one day.
Yes. And, yeah, definitely. And like I said, I know it takes a lot of copies moved in a very short amount of time to be able to crack, especially on the overall. A lot of people, are calling themselves bestsellers because, they cracked the top 10 in some obscure category. And they've done it, over and over again. And, and I have too. But like I said, I know that I hit that by selling 12 books in a day. That's not like selling 1,200 books in a day or 12,000 books in a day. That, you have to be moving some serious copies to be able to hit the overall. And it's something that, I've talked about in author groups, because people are talking about, well, when can I claim it? And everybody's like, when you hit the overall paid on Amazon, you hit number 1 in, a little obscure category. Great, there may be 3 million books in that category. But if I moved 12 copies today and all those other, 2,999,999 didn't sell any copies, yes, I hit the number 1 in that category, but I didn't have to move a lot of copies to do it.
Yeah.
And, to me, that is just something that I don't feel comfortable laying claim to. And a lot of people have told me, well, you are a bestseller. I'm like, I was a bestseller for like a day. I might could slap that on the Red Fang, that, this is an Amazon best-selling book, but it's just that one book. I've unfortunately have not been able to repeat that with any single book since then. And to me, it was almost like a fluke. I've yet to figure out how the hell I managed to do that in a single day. I didn't do anything special. I actually didn't, run a promotion. I think I posted about it on, my Facebook page, and in a
Mhm.
couple of Facebook groups, and that was it, you know. And
Yeah.
I actually went up for sale, you know, like around lunchtime. And when I got up the next morning, you know, it takes Amazon about 12 to 24 hours to switch the price back. And I was just
Mhm.
doing it, you know, a one-day 99-cent sale. And the next day I get up and I'm going to go and, you know, change the price back to the regular $4.99. And I looked at, holy shit, who the hell bought 700 copies of this book? But still,
Yeah.
it was nowhere near able to even crack the top 100,000 paid. So, yeah, just from my own experience, I know how incredibly difficult it is to hit that. So,
Yeah,
yeah, if
it
you can
is.
crack
And I just
that,
the
hell yeah,
thing is
claim it.
though, yeah, but the thing is though, I feel like a lot of times those of us that did crack that 100 or even top 50, I feel like some people want to discount our title because it's just, oh, international bestseller. What does that mean? Oh, you hit top 100 in a category. No. You know, I get on board and I'm like, look, if you want proof, I will send you proof. You know, we straight up hit. We've got the screenshots on that one book, and then there was 2 books that followed it that did it. And I'm like, come on now. You know, I'm proud of it. I really am.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to wipe that title off of my books. I'm like, I freaking earned it. I busted my ass to make it happen.
Absolutely. What's a typical writing day like for you?
Lots of coffee. Usually it's just me getting up. I drink like I said, lots of coffee at first. I kind of shuffle around the house, and then I sit down in my chair, put my headphones on, and I just start writing. I just block out everything around me, and I just write. I don't outline, so I have nothing to go by.
No, so you are a pantser, not a plotter.
Yeah, and I don't know how I can do it. I know there's people out there that are like, oh, I have to have an outline. I have to have,
Yes.
you know, I just make it up on the fly. And like I said, I just really go through it several times before it gets edited, just to dump part of it, keep part of it, and see what you got.
Yes. And I see people on Facebook, they're like, oh, well, I made this huge outline, and, you know, they have like the little pegboard, and they've got everything plotted out. And I'm like, you know, in the time it took me to do that, I could have wrote that damn book. So
I
I'm a
know.
complete pantser. You know, to me, doing an outline when I really don't know what the hell is going on is just, for me, it's a waste of time. Not to mention that every time I've tried to do that, my characters decided they wanted to do something different, and I just ended up having to toss out half of it anyway. So I'm the same way. I sit down and I just write. And, you know, whatever happens, I go in with a vague, and usually it's a very vague idea of what's going to happen, and just write and let the story unfold. But yeah, I know a lot of people are like that. They're like, oh, I couldn't do it if I didn't have an outline. And I'm like, as OCD as I am, I'm afraid that outline would probably drive me up the wall.
I went to Staples one time because I'm like, I'm going to start plotting this out. And I bought like note cards and push pens and was going to write, you know, and have like the frickin' like, you know, Criminal Minds, like the strings going from one to the other, connecting like how many degrees of Kevin Bacon bullshit. And I went into my office and I grabbed the note cards in the little plastic wrapping, and I'm like, I can't do this. Forget it. And I tossed them aside. I'm like, nope, I can't. It's not going to happen.
Yes.
I just do. It just comes from, you know, the people don't understand it, but I just explain it like this. I just let what is in my head and in my heart out onto the friggin' pages and see what comes out. That's all.
Yes, definitely. I'm the same way, and I've always been that way. I don't think I've ever tried to actually outline something. Now, I may take notes. I do have, you know, my little notebooks open to where I will take, you know, jot down little notes and things that, especially if I'm doing research, things that I might need to know later on.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as sitting and outlining an entire book, no.
Nope, I can't.
Me either. That's not the way my brain works, unfortunately.
And this time with the book that is coming out in March, something crazy happened though. I, for some reason, couldn't like find the words I wanted when I sat down to type, but when I would sit down with like a journal and a pencil, like, I could handwrite that crap all day long. And it happened, like, I probably filled up, like, 2 journals, like, handwriting it. And then I had to go buy a new carpal tunnel brace for my right hand.
Yes.
Like, because it was hurting so bad. But, like, I have notebooks I have them in my car from this day, too. Like, if I had a doctor's appointment and I knew, like, oh, I'm going to have to wait a while, I'd sit in the waiting room and just sit there and write. And people, like, there'd be somebody sitting next to me kind of peering over, and there was one lady, I told her, I was like, you don't want to read this. Because it was pretty graphic. Yeah, it was graphic, and I'm thinking, like, she was, like, 70, and I'm like, oh, no, this is going to end up bad for Granny.
How much of your books are based on, like, real people or real-life events? I know a lot of authors say, well, and I'm the same way, every character that I write, there's a little bit of me. But with a lot of the stuff that I do, I've almost always got some type of physical model. It's either somebody that I knew, a celebrity. Every book and just about every character in every book that I've ever written has been based off of someone. So do you have, like, physical muses that you use, or do you just make it up on the fly? How much of it is actually based on real people or events?
For the most part, I'm going to tell you what, I live in Southern Illinois, and there's not very many, let's just say, inspirations around here.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, my book, Loose Ends, like, I went with Jared Leto from, 30 Seconds to Mars. Like, he was kind of like my guy. And yeah, like you said, each, especially female character, has some of my personality traits in them. More than anything, though, I try to put in stuff that more life experiences than just the personality traits. And one of the huge examples was my book, Left to Chance. I was going through getting clean from narcotic painkillers at the time I was rewriting that book. And I actually put in a scene where my main guy went to rehab for alcoholism. So for me, I think it was a way of healing. And I think leaving those Easter eggs in my books like that is a way of kind of memorializing, like, that point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all go through, like, really crappy things, and we deal with stuff on a daily basis. And for me, I get to have an outlet for it. So, I can flip through that book, and I'm like, yeah, I remember this is exactly how I felt. And I put that into that character and into that scene.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think for me it's so much events, so much as it's just people. One of the things that I'd always planned on doing in high school, and how the hell I ended up where I am now is beyond me, but the one thing that I had always planned throughout my entire, high school career was I had always planned to study in journalism in college, and my ultimate goal was to be a music journalist.
Oh, wow.
I've always loved music. Music has been a huge part of my life. I've loved, the metal, the rock and roll scene. Grew up on the 80s hair bands, and read all the magazines, and that's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to write, for the blogs and the magazines that interviewed the musicians. And unfortunately, life happened, and how the hell I ended up studying business management is beyond me, but there you go. But that is something that I had always wanted to do. And since music is such a huge part of my life, one thing, I love pimping out upcoming bands. If you ever read on my Facebook, you see that I'm always posting YouTube videos of these random little bands that nobody's heard of. Always picking them out, sharing their posts. Just absolutely love doing that. And so there's a lot, especially the ones that have the rock stars in them, the rock star romance, that they're all based off of, people in the bands that I love. The entire Sweet Production series that we did, and although granted it's paranormal, and it was, meant kind of tongue-in-cheek, as, romantic comedy. We went very overboard with the erotica on purpose. A lot of it is very cheesy, very cringeworthy, but we did it that way on purpose. But every character, the band in the series is called White Coffin. It's a vampire metal band. I mean, it's an actual, vampires, not vampire lifestyle, but, in the paranormal world, actual vampires that put a band together. But each one of those characters in the White Coffin Band is based off of one of the members of Black Veil Bride. And I love doing that. There's all kinds of kudos in the book, where we thank the bands. We spoofed a lot of upcoming bands in those books that we've given kudos in the back of the books, with their links and everything. It's just something that I've just always really loved to do. And a lot of people, a lot of people don't make those connections. And I absolutely love, like you said, leaving those little Easter eggs for people, for them to try to connect later on. When I wrote Hell's Ballad, and that was a standalone, and that was another one that the entire band in that book was coined after Black Veil Bride. And when I was going through the first set of rewrites, I had accidentally, not meaning to, but accidentally, in just writing a sentence, the way that the wording was in the sentence made up one of the titles of their song. And I thought,
that's awesome.
I'm like, that's pretty cool. And I sat down and I thought to myself, I wonder if I could do that again. So I sat down, with all my DVDs scattered out, or not my DVDs, my CDs scattered out on my desk, and I'm going through, looking at their song titles going, that one will fit, and that one will fit, and that one will fit. And so I wrote all these down, and I picked 12 songs that I went back into Hell's Ballad and wrote those song titles into the book somewhere.
That is so cool.
And so far, no one has ever been able to tell me the 12 songs that I have listed in there. It's kind of been like an ongoing contest. If anybody can tell me the 12 songs, of Black Veil Brides that's actually in that book, they get swag pack and a signed copy of the book and everything. But so far, no one has ever claimed that because, unfortunately, apparently, the few readers that I have do not know who Black Veil Brides are. They're not fans, so.
See, and that's one of my favorite bands, too, so I'm like,
But, but I mean, I love doing stuff like that. And I guess most authors are like that. It's, the kind of tongue-in-cheek and, it's a way for me to have fun with it. And I've often wondered if, all the little connections I've got going on, how many people actually make those connections.
Yeah, and I think a lot of authors do hide things like that. Some, will tell you about them and some won't. There are some things in my books that were personal experiences that I kind of want to forget. Like, I stuck them in the book, and I'm just like, okay, they're gone now. Like, I don't want to revisit them. But like I said, it's a way of healing for me. It's a way of, finding that validation that I got through whatever it was at the time. And I'm going to put it on paper and just send it out there. So, people that read my books, if they see some, like, really shitty things happening, you never know. It could have happened to me.
Yeah, definitely. I do try to incorporate a few things here and there, but for me it's less about the events that happened in my life and more about the characters and having a physical model and, coining a character after someone, which is a lot of fun.
It is. I try to leave a lot to the imagination when it comes to, like, the physicality and everything of the characters, because that's what I like to read. I want to imagine it for myself. I don't know. Probably Loose Ends was the only book that I was really just modeling a character after somebody famous. But I think it was mostly because, I have a thing for Jared Leto, and he should be my next husband. He just doesn't know it yet. He needs to be informed soon.
Yes. Was there anything you want to add? We're getting towards kind of the end. We've been doing this for about an hour and a half, and I really
oh my gosh, I'm serious. I didn't even know.
Unfortunately, I've got to start wrapping things up because the
No,
last
that's
time
fine.
I had my first interview lasted for about an hour and 20 minutes, and it took 3 solid hours for the for YouTube for the video to upload and publish to YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I'm like,
no,
I have to start cutting those things back.
Yeah, I know. I want to say thank you for having me. Thank you to all of my readers out there if you're listening to this. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me. Through all these years, I've had a blast writing for you guys, and there is so much more to come. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for joining me tonight. I really enjoyed it, and we are so going to have to do this again.
Definitely. I'm on board. Hey, let's sign it up.
Thank you again, Taylor, for joining us this evening, and thank you all for tuning in. I look forward to our next episode. Until then, this is Nicola Matthews saying peace, love, and books, y'all.